am the Irish Guy, and this video is creepy. Today, I'm going to take a look at every Premier League club and find every team's former manager who is currently coaching the best player. And I'm going to rank them from lowest to best. This feels weird. This is a bit like some creepy loner up at 3 a.m. trawling through his ex's Instagram page to see how hunky her new fella is. Lads, I won't lie, okay? In this video, some managers that you sacked are now working with much better footballers than they ever had with you. But some, yes, are coaching utter flops with the footballing ability of half-eaten turkey dinosaurs. But okay, then let's see who the best player that your ex-manager is currently managing. Right, let's go. 20th Crysal Palace, Aaron Drinan. Are you for real? I've trawled through every single ex-Crystal Palace manager to find the best player they're currently working with, and the best I could drum up was an Irish footballer who I've never heard of. 27-year-old striker Aaron Drinan. He's about as famous as a half-eaten Twix. I guarantee you, nobody in the comments even knows that he's a thing. And why would you? Sure, he's gobbling up 10 goals in 13 games for Swindon Town in League 2, but so? That's about as likely to make the national press as a story about you finding your pug soiling himself whilst watching reruns of Friends. Lads, I love Irish strikers, but no, seriously, there's only one ex-Crystal Palace manager who's got a job right now, and that's the same bloke who made fun of my jeans. Ian Holloway is the only one. Practically everyone else is retired. I mean, Big Sam, Poulis, and Pardew are now a comedy triple act on those ads on telly celebrating their retirement. Frank de Boer has recently admitted that he basically rather kiss a monkey than get back in the dugout, whilst Roy Hodgson probably gets his breakfast fed to him through a straw in his ear. If only Patrick Vieira had not just been sacked at Genoa, then I could fling in a fairly big name like Ruslan Malinovsky, but instead, I'm just gonna have to pick this Swindon chump. So obviously, Palace go rock bottom of the list. 19th Liverpool for Facundo Pellistri. Well, this looks weird. Liverpool are right now second bottom of the list because the best player that a former Reds boss is currently coaching is a Man United misfit. Doesn't that taste weirder than eating your grandma's tongue for breakfast? Yeah, it's because the only ex-Liverpool boss still in a job is the bloke you sacked 15 years ago. Poor old Rafa Benitez, after repeatedly embarrassing himself since leaving Newcastle. Seriously, lads, cozying up with Everton was such an ugly look. For somebody who achieved so much at Liverpool, then going to the Toffees was a bit like spitting on his Champions League medal. But he's now in Greece with Panathinaikos. And it is weird for me to plump with Pellistri when Benitez literally has in his possession a former Golden Boy winner, a Euro 2016 winner with Portugal at 18, a former £70 million Bayern Munich midfielder, and somebody who's still technically contracted to the European champions in PSG. True, but Renato Sanchez is probably the Portuguese Dele Alli, somebody whose confidence seems to have been eaten by mice, and so yeah, Panathinaikos' best player is probably a pretty talented Pellistri who's surprisingly got nearly 40 Uruguay caps at the age of 23, but still no higher than 19th. 18th Aston Villa, Wilfried Zaha. Yep, and making up the relegation zone is poor old Aston Villa with Wilfried Zaha. At one point, I thought this guy was verging on being world class. Now he's lucky that I'm edging this past the Ivorian winger past Pellistri in the list, because I mean, when you're playing MLS footy with Charlotte FC at 33, you could have no complaints about being relegated from this list. But yeah, he's in here because yes, former Villa boss Dean Smith has scraped a job with Charlotte, which is weird. It feels like he only wormed his way into this job because what? He had to figure out an excuse after his wife found text from someone called Charlotte on his phone? I don't know, but yeah, the only other ex-Villa manager to have a job right now is Martin O'Neill. And I have to think that Zaha is still better than anything at Celtic right now. 17th Fulham, Kyle Walker. Lads, Fulham could legitimately have blasted their way into the top half of this video. I mean, they could have been squirming around the European spots at the very least, because a few months ago, ex-Fulham failure Claudio Ranieri literally turned down the Italy job. Sorry, what? You're 73 years of age. You've been around Italian football all your life, but you have never managed your nation, and you choose to turn it down? Rejecting the chance to coach a world-class phenomenon like Tonali to instead just continue to be a senior advisor granddad in the Roma attic. You literally had the Italian job on your lap in your 70s. This is the biggest bag fumble since Francis Ngannou rejected a Netflix payday to turn a YouTuber's face into crumbled pancakes. But no, because of Ranieri's ridiculous loyalty to Roma, then I'm just gonna have to settle for Scott Parker, who just so happens to coach the best right back in Premier League history at a grubby old Burnley. I know Kyle Walker is now 35, but hey, it is just 2.5 years out from him winning the treble as a right back. He is a Champions League winning 6-time Premier League champion, and even now at 35 has converted himself into some sort of wonky centre back in a back three, which utterly stinks of Southgate ball. But I'll still say that this version of Walker just about squeaks Fulham above the relegation zone. 18th Man City, Roberto Firmino. Yeah, A former Man City manager actually coaches a Liverpool legend in Roberto Firmino. Doesn't that feel creepy and weird? It's like somebody finding out that their ex-wife just swiped right on their cousin. Actually, nah, it's weirder than that. It's like your mom telling you she's going on a date with Barney the dinosaur. But yes, Roberto Mancini loves money. This is someone whose name is plastered all over the 115 charges, right? Allegations of multiple Man City contracts. Well, he's doing nothing to disprove the allegations that he's money obsessed by chasing the bag in Saudi and now Qatar. Yeah, after his managerial rebirth, after winning Italy the Euros, he was suddenly relevant again in the eyes of European chairmen. He was on the Man United shopping list, but no. He's clearly happy to just eat pots of gold in Qatar, where yeah, he's the Al Sadd boss and manages a 34-year-old version of Roberto Firmino. I mean, look, peak Firmino would absolutely wedge himself into the top 10 of this list, but I have to think nowadays he's probably still decent. But like Walker, it must be a little bit of a burnt-out sausage too. 15, Sunderland, Jordan Pickford. How very fitting that the Sunderland entry is Jordan Pickford. Yeah, I mean, somehow they've wedged their way above Man City in this list, which is strange considering the amount of reject managers they've had over the last 10 years. I mean, most of them are now utterly untouchable in the eyes of chairmen across the globe. Seriously, remember when Michael Beale was in a position to turn down Wolves? Yeah, you're now more likely to find him cooking chicken nuggets in the Burger King drive-thru. The answer for Sunderland is David Moyes, where yes, I know he currently coaches a £100 million footballer getting paid £300,000 a week, but Jack Grealish is not Everton's best player. Absolutely not. When the England manager looks like he'd rather lick a pig's eyeball than give Jack a phone call. No, I'll also sensibly sidestep to Branthwaite hype to go with Pickford. Come on, 81 England caps, nearly 400 games under his belt in goal for Everton. I genuinely believe he's good enough to be Man City goalie for the Pep era. He's actually a little unlucky I've put him so far down to 15th. 14th, Nottingham Forest, Jared Bowen. Oh, lads, I'm waiting, just waiting for Big Ange to pop up somewhere in international football where he gets to work with a megastar name. You just know it's coming. I could absolutely see him soon swanning in there to coach Hakimi with Morocco. Something really loopy like that. I promise you, Postecoglou's next job is going to be weirder than seeing AJ fight Logan Paul's little bro. It's going to be stranger than seeing me getting married to Pop off the Rice Krispies box. But for now, I'll just go for boring old Nuno Santo, who coaches a top quality England international winger like Jared Bowen at West Ham. I mean, considering Forest's millions and millions of obscure managers over the last 15 years, I was hoping for something a bit more exciting and out of the box than, you know, Danny Dyer's husband. By the way, that's a technically true statement. Look it up. Okay, I know I could have gone with Paqueta, but I'm sorry, lads. Bowen's West Ham's best player. 13th, Arsenal, Morgan Rogers. Yeah. The only ex-Arsenal manager still in work is Unai Emery. And thankfully, otherwise we'd ruin the whole video, because Arsene Wenger looks more likely to need his body weight in daffodils than ever manage again. But yeah, Aston Villa's best player is fine. It's Morgan Rogers, okay? Even though I do believe he was ridiculously overrated. And the fact there's even a conversation for somebody who began the season so terribly with Villa, for him to even be in with a sniff of starting matches for England as their number 10, it's about as laughable as me asking a Hollywood producer if I could play Wolverine in the X-Men reboot. Sorry, what? Rogers is a decent player, but I don't even think he should make the World Cup squad. There should only be one player in that squad doing the cold celebration in America, and it's not Rogers. 12th, Brentford, Mickey van de Ven. Look, the obvious answer for Brentford is obviously me, Joaquin and Thomas Frank. And I would say that Spurs' best player is probably beefcake Dutch centre-back Mickey van de Ven. I mean, come on, in a golden generation of Dutch defenders, to still be starting in the Netherlands back four, whilst Ake and De Ligt eat Pop-Tarts on the bench. I mean, chuck at the fact that he's currently Spurs' top scorer this season, and is probably in line to win the Puskas Award. I mean, Son Heung-min did it for an identical goal. Then yeah, I'm gonna stick him in here. Although I wish the former Brentford interim boss Lee Carsley was coaching a secret monster player in the England under 21s, like when Steve Cooper had Phil Foden, just so he could have pushed Frank close. But I mean, Lewis Hall, Josh Chiampong, Rico Lewis, Joe Bellingham, Jamie Giddens, good players, but nowhere near as good as Van de Ven, who's probably unlucky to be as low as 12th. 11th, Newcastle, Scott McTominay. Yeah, I'm shocked about this one too, okay, because there's so few Newcastle managers now in work. I was literally having to scroll through John Carver's current squad. Lechia Gdansk in Poland. Yeah, I don't know any of their players. But no, thankfully, Steve Clarke, the Scotland manager, actually wedged a very brief interim spell as Newcastle boss in 1999, the first managerial role of his career after Ruud Gullit was sacked. He was briefly, so briefly, the number one in the St. James's Park dugout. The only thing he did at Newcastle was bring Alan Shearer back into the starting lineup and then lose 5-1 at Old Trafford. Yeah, he then panically handed over the reins to Sir Bobby Robson. But yeah, no, I'm going to put in Clarke here because right now he is coaching a Napoli megastar in Scott McTominay, who has just turned into some sort of Superman since leaving Old Trafford. And seriously, this is is someone who was recently nominated for a Ballon d'Or. So yeah, I'm going to stick him 11th. 10th, West Ham, Alexander Isak. Yes. Graham Potter manages a £125 million centre forward and another centre forward on the back of an almost 60-goal season. After absolutely wiping his Premier League reputation all over the back of a toilet seat. It is ridiculous how this weedy bookworm, someone who looks like that nerd who got bullied by his missus in the School of Rock, it's crazy how he's taking charge of one of the most expensive strike partnerships on the planet. I mean, is he the new Lars Lagerback who got to manage the glamorous Swedish double act of Zlatan and Larsson? Look, the mere thought of Isak absolutely makes me feel like grinding my teeth until I'm no longer able to chew apples. But I have to say, he is the best player that the former Hammers boss is currently managing. But I mean, there's not much competition. Lopetegui manages Qatar. Now, who am I going to say for 9th? 9th, Brighton, Alexander Isak. Yeah, Potter again. Oh, am I really having to talk about Isak twice? Oh, I didn't think this one through. Okay, no. Is there not any other ex-Brighton manager who I can make a case for coaching a bigger star right now? Oh, Roberto De Zerbi is currently manager. Oh, wait, no, never mind. I'm not going there. It would be like suggesting my sister to go on a date with Chris Brown. Wait, hang on. Benjamin Pavard is a World Cup winning France international defender, and he's currently on loan at Marseille from Inter Milan, playing centre back every week. Actually, yeah, he's a treble winning defender who's played in 2 World Cup finals. He scored goal of the tournament at one of the World Cups. He just played in a Champions League final, and oh yeah, he's been a French knight since 2018. Okay, look, at the risk of sounding like a stupidly bitter and petty weirdo who feeds popcorn to ducks at the pond, then I'm actually gonna change my Brighton answer. 9th, Brighton, Benjamin Pavard. Okay, let's pretend for a minute that Isak is no better than Pavard, so I don't have to include this devilish Swedish muffin twice. That feels better. Thank you, Pavard. 8th, Man United, David Alaba. It's like this list is screaming at me to put Grealish in, but no, I don't care that David Moyes' name keeps potentially popping up. The ex-Man United boss currently in charge of the best player is Ralf Rangnick, who manages a severely injury-prone David Alaba. Look, I get that the Austrian has had so many horrible injuries, so much so that Xabi Alonso does not trust him enough to even put him in his Real Madrid team, but I promise he would fit in given a chance. Alaba is an incredible footballer who can play almost anywhere on the pitch, and yeah, Rangnick manages him with the Austria team. And for those of you who think that he's washed up croissant, lads, he is the 2nd highest paid footballer at Real Madrid. Only Mbappe earns more dough. He's got 10 Bundesliga medals. He's looking for his 5th Champions League crown. Who else would I choose for Man United? It's obviously Alaba. 7th, Tottenham, Kevin De Bruyne. Pretty obvious pick here. Former Tottenham boss Antonio Conte is in charge of one of the greatest midfielders who ever lived. Was at Napoli, he's nicked Kevin De Bruyne on a free. Now, peak De Bruyne would be much higher up this list, but now at the age of 34, he is so frighteningly injury prone. Seriously, he just pulled a hammy taking a penalty. Pretty soon, he won't be able to whip up a batch of scrambled eggs without taking out his eye with a spoon. So a 34-year-old De Bruyne, he's still Napoli's best player, sure, and better than anything that a former Spurs coach works with right now, but I'll only have him 7th. 6th, Bournemouth, Sandro Tonali. What? Sandro Tonali is an epic footballer, and he has right now is a better baller than De Bruyne. I'll stand over this one. I don't care if you think I've got the brains of an Egg McMuffin, purely for the legs alone to actually get around the pitch. Yes, I absolutely think that a 25-year-old Tonali is more useful than a 34-year-old De Bruyne. That shouldn't even be a scary thing to say. This isn't like I'm saying that I think blueberries are mean, or that seagulls like to watch James Bond when we're all asleep. Eddie Howe is currently working with the best footballer of his career, because I really think that Tonali is epic. This guy's good enough to play for Real Madrid. He's probably the best Italian footballer since Pirlo, and the fact that he never made Italy's squad when they won the Euros, that now looks like a more confusing call than if Mancini had chosen to order broccoli at the KFC drive-thru. 5th, Leeds, Federico Valverde. Oh, wow, it seems crazy to think that of all the stupidly bizarre coaches Leeds have had over the last 20 years, that it still pays off with sneaking as high as 5th in the list, because of course it's Marcelo Bielsa, one of the greatest gaffers of all time, and it was always so weird that he took on a championship job with Leeds. Anyway, he's now the Uruguay manager, and that Uruguay team just so happens to boast one of the most complete footballers in the world. Federico Valverde is sensational. A 27-year midfielder who's played nearly 350 times for Real Madrid, winning the Champions League twice. He's an excellent midfielder who's ironically also one of the best right backs in the world. He alone could be the guy to utterly spoil Trent's time in Spain, because with his energy, his intelligence, his technical ability, he's one of the most important players in Real Madrid's team. Xabi Alonso loves him. He starts him in almost every match, as did Ancelotti too. He's an unbelievable footballer, and to think that he's someone who's getting getting barked instructions by someone who used to manage Leeds. It feels bizarre. It's like if someone told you that Beyonce's tour manager used to work at Foot Locker. Fourth, Everton Vinicius Junior. Yeah, of course. Everton had actual Carlo Ancelotti as their boss, which still feels insane. Like, how did that actually happen? How on earth did they convince this majestic football don to sign up for mid-table mediocrity? It was like asking the Marlon Brando Godfather to come and watch SpongeBob in his underpants. But look, Carlo is the first ever non-Brazilian manager of Brazil, and so yeah, the answer is Vinny Jr. Although, isn't it wild? Real Madrid boycott the Ballon d'Or now because they were so outraged that people dare to think that Vinny was not the best player on the planet. I don't even think he's the best player at Real Madrid. And look, yes, I'm well aware that a former Everton manager currently manages Cristiano Ronaldo. So what? He's nearly 41? There's a reason he doesn't get nominated for the Ballon d'Or anymore. Next, third, Burnley Harry Kane. Wow, isn't it crazy to think that a former Burnley coach manages Harry Kane? If you were told that 2 years ago, you'd have many England managers freaking out that their next boss was Sean Dyche. Look, I think Vincent Kompany is turning into a world-class manager, whilst Harry Kane is an epic footballer who I think squeaks above Vinny Jr. Come on, he's the English Lewandowski, who's got 108 goals in 113 matches for Bayern Munich. He could well win the treble this year. I know, it seems bananas to put Burnley so high up in this list, but purely because they took a plunge in Kompany, someone who was on course to be the best manager in the world one day, then yeah, it pays off with third. Second, Chelsea, Jude Bellingham. Yeah. Step forward, Thomas Tuchel, who manages Jude Bellingham. So much is made about this guy's attitude, but I'm sorry, for a 22-year-old to glide around the Bernabeu with that much of an aura, I think that should be celebrated. Do you know how many people crumple like terrified sheep when they put on their Real Madrid shirts? No, forget that. He gets given the Zidane number when he's barely out of his teens, but he brushes off the pressure to win the Champions League, scoring 23 goals in his debut season. This is somebody who finished third in the Ballon d'Or, but you know what? I think he should have won the Ballon d'Or in 2024. He's an unbelievable footballer and has potential to be England's best ever player. But still doesn't top this table. First, Wolves Erling Haaland. I'm shocked too. A former Wolves manager coaches the best goal machine on the planet. And you know who it is? Anyone? It's some absolute Wolves misfit. A horror show of a manager who was fired after 6 months back in January 2013 with his fingerprints all over their relegation to League One. Fired in the middle of 2 relegations on the bounce. I mean, ironically, he lost his job after a defeat to Luton Town because this guy stinks of what Rob Edwards has done, who's ironically now the Wolves manager. Because like Edwards, he also left the club mid-season on the way to 2 relegations in a row. Yeah, stale Saul Bakken was at Molyneux back then. He was some absolutely nothing Norwegian coach, but guess what? He's just guided Norway to the first World Cup in yonks. He's the guy entrusted with their golden generation, where yeah, it features one of the best strikers to ever live. Isn't it wild that Haaland is every day managed by Guardiola, and then an international duty, he's being coached by one of the worst managers in Wolves history. Saul Bakken must feel so lucky. The fact he's one of the biggest managerial failures in this list, and he actually manages someone on course to become the top scorer in Premier League history, someone who's surely going to win multiple Ballon d'Ors. It's actually mad. Anyway, that's the interview. What do you think? Do you agree with this order? Do you agree with the list? Let me know. Maybe you don't even agree with the players. Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, please. I'll talk to you in a while.